Started here. My name is Tony Raffa again. I'm from the Savi team. We help borrowers navigate their student debt, and we work with employers to bring this great benefit to their employees. And with many of the counties we work with, some even bring it to their not just their employees, but also their residents. And so we'll talk through all that. We'll kind of give a lay of the land on Savi, on the student landscape of, or on the current landscape of student debt. My team, as you can see, is on the chat as well as Derek from the MAC team. Please feel free to ask any questions in the Q&A section, or if the chat allows, you can ask it in the chat. But my team is here to answer all those questions. And at the end of my presentation, I will also answer your questions live for everyone. So please feel free to ask any questions as we go, and we will answer them at the end, or my team will answer them as we go. So again, my name is Tony Raffa. You'll see my email here. I've also put it in the chat for you all in case you want to reach it, and we'll share it at the end as well. But let's talk a little bit about Savi and student debt. First, I really like to start out with just who Savi is and why we were created. So the Savi team is mostly made up of borrower advocates. Most of us come from the nonprofit space. A lot of us were helping, borrowers navigate their student debt. We've seen so many borrowers struggle with their student debt. Most of us are borrowers ourselves in many cases, and we just really wanted to figure out some solutions for these borrowers. Now, while we were on the advocacy side of this, part of what we realized is there's a lot of great programs out there that exist to help these borrowers lower their monthly payments to make them more manageable and even achieve forgiveness in many cases, including the case of all your employees. And so while we were going through this, we realized that there were some really major issues. One is a huge lack of awareness around these programs and a lot of confusion for borrowers on figuring out which programs you can qualify for and what it takes to qualify for those programs. The other big problem we were seeing is a very low success rate for borrowers navigating these programs on their own and getting across the finish line to lower those payments and achieve forgiveness. One program we'll talk a lot about here today because it's available to all your employees is public service loan forgiveness. This has been notoriously accepted, not because they do not qualify, but because of confusion around the program. And we'll get more into that as we go. But seeing all these problems, Savi and our team figured there has to be a better way. And that's why in 2017, we created Savi to help these borrowers and these employers navigate their student debt and save and achieve forgiveness on their student debt. And that's why we came up with Savi. We talked about that PSLF success rate being only 2.3%. With Savi, we have over a 99.7% success rate on all applications we send in. So just to talk a little bit about the difference and why we created this program. The other thing I want to note is, Savi was built to really be this very easy to use technology tool that takes this complicated process, makes it very simple, takes users a few minutes to go through. But we also are made up of borrower advocates, and we want to be here to answer borrowers' questions. It's a confusing space. A lot of borrowers can struggle and want help, and it can be hard to get help. Savi combines our technology with our one-on-one human support, our team of borrower advocates, to make sure borrowers can get any of their questions answered. So let's talk a little bit about the state of things, and then we can get into how Savi helps solve these problems. So there's 46 million borrowers with student debt. The average student debt is over $37,000, and there's $1.7 trillion of federal student debt. So that's really what we're focused on here today, that federal student debt that accounts for 93% of all student debt that exists. The other things that we've been seeing recently and throughout history is that many borrowers struggle with those monthly payments. In fact, 40% of borrowers say they can't even afford their monthly payment with their income and their savings combined. I can say that was actually the case for me and my wife. I do not know what we would do if it was not for these programs to help us manage these payments. And we'll get more into that situation for borrowers as well. On top of that, we've seen many Americans are missing their monthly payments, and we've actually seen delinquency rates skyrocketing, 16% delinquency rates in 2024, and we see those on the rise. They're expecting over 9 million delinquencies by the end of the year. That is tremendously concerning just because, of course, if you are delinquent, it can have a very negative impact on your credit score, which can be hard to come back from. But if you continue to be in delinquency and go into deferment, or not deferment, if you continue to be in delinquency, you could even get your wages garnished, or they could come after your tax return to claim those payments if you go too long in delinquency. So What can borrowers do to help solve this problem? Well, there's actually over 150 federal and state programs borrowers can utilize to lower those monthly payments and even achieve forgiveness for your employees who work in government. They can utilize that public service loan forgiveness program. With those borrowers and with all across all Savvy users, we are seeing average savings of $187 a month. Comes out to over $2,000 a year, and average forgiveness of over $40,000. So these programs can be highly impactful, and we are seeing it have a tremendous impact on many of the employees and residents that we work with across the many counties and employers that we work with. So to talk a little bit about the state of things, why is this so confusing? Well, borrowers really face a maze of options, right? There's 17 repayment plans, 9 forgiveness plans, forbearance plans, deferment plans, and also state plans. So this can create a lot of confusion for borrowers. Savvy's going to help make this really simple. We're going to ask a few questions, and we're going to let you know everything you qualify for and how each of these programs impact your debt and how they work together. So for instance, many of your borrowers will most likely want to be on a repayment program, plus they will utilize public service loan forgiveness. When you combine these programs together, you maximize that savings and forgiveness. The repayment helps you lower those monthly payments, get you on qualifying payment types, and then the forgiveness helps you see your debt forgiven after a certain period of time and an amount of service to the government. So let's talk a little bit more about what that public service loan forgiveness program looks like. Again, this is available to all county employees, all government employees. It helps them achieve forgiveness after 10 years of service is how it's often talked about. It was built to be a reward for those who work in public sector in government. It's also meant to be a recruitment and retention tool for the public sector and government. But unfortunately, again, has just been really notoriously challenging for borrowers. We found there's over 9 million borrowers who could qualify for public service loan forgiveness. Out of those, only 15% of them have applied. And out of all those who have applied, only 2.3% of those who have applied have been accepted throughout time. Again, this really comes down to confusion around the program and around the paperwork, but also what is and is not a qualifying payment, because that's where one of the big confusion points have come up. We often talk about the program again as 10 years of service, and that is correct. You need to serve for 10 years. But what the federal government is looking for is that you've made 120 qualifying payments. Again, this creates a lot of confusion for borrowers. Not all payments are qualifying payments. So often I just hear from borrowers, I've been working in government for 10 years. I've applied 5 times to PSLF. I've gotten denied 5 times. Even though I know I can get $40,000 in forgiveness, I'm giving up because I just cannot figure it out. That's where Savi comes in. We automate this whole process for you, show you your path, and make sure that you get that forgiveness. Again, with Savi, we have over a 99.7% acceptance rate on all applications we send in. So it makes a tremendous difference there. Now let's talk a little bit about the state of student debt. There's been a lot of headlines recently, multiple executive orders, and I just want to talk about the impact of each of those. First, we've talked about how there's over 150 programs borrowers might qualify for. This is both part of the solution and the problem for borrowers. It makes it very confusing, but it also allows for them to have different options to help them maximize their savings. So to go a little bit through history, each administration has brought forth a new program, a new way to try to help these borrowers. Bush enacted the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. It was passed through Congress and then signed into law by President Bush in 2007. That's the program we were talking about to reward those who work in government or in the public sector. Obama added Repay, which is a income-based repayment program. So we talked about there's 17 different repayment programs. We will go through those today. Last time Trump was in office, he expanded the PSLF program. He also enacted that payment pause. That was during the COVID period because it was a payment pause created by the federal government. Even though borrowers were not making payments during that time, those payments can still qualify for public service loan forgiveness. So really important that borrowers realize that and apply appropriately. And then finally, Biden updated the Repay program to be the SAVE program. Now, one thing to highlight on the SAVE program is the SAVE program was never passed through Congress. So most of these repayment programs, PSLF, these programs were passed through Congress and then signed into law by presidents at the time. And so to change these would take an act of Congress. Now, with SAVE, again, this was not passed through Congress and has been held up in the courts since its original inception. So it is a program that people have been able to apply to, but anyone who did apply to it was put into forbearance as the courts decide on its fate. I can say, from my opinion, I do not believe that SAVE will continue. I think that would have been regardless of any president. It was mixed reviews from those in Congress and has been held up in the Supreme Courts, and we do not expect to see it going forward. However, the other repayment programs and things like public service loan forgiveness, again, are acts of Congress. They would need any changes to them would need to go through Congress and be signed into law. But with that being said, let's talk about the executive orders and the intentions behind these executive orders. So one executive order specifically was talking through public service loan forgiveness. You might have seen some headlines around this that's created a lot of confusion for borrowers, for employers, for the sector. I want to highlight that this executive order, again, for any of these changes to be made to PSLF, we need to go through Congress. That being said, we also saw with this executive order that its goal for public service loan forgiveness was to target those groups that engage in activities that have a substantial illegal purpose. So again, we do not see this having an effect on your employees, but that was the intent of this executive order. And again, it would need to go through Congress to have the impact to the actual program itself. We also have seen this, and I've heard this from many people, really being an acceptance of the PSLF program. Linda McMahon, the Department of Education secretary, has said that they plan to keep public service loan forgiveness, even to keep public service loan forgiveness buyback program. So we do not see any revoking of that program right now from any of the language that has come out or any of these executive orders currently standing. The other executive order we have seen from President Trump to Linda McMahon was to start dismantling the Department of Education. Again, much of the Department of Education, to completely dismantle it, would need to go through Congress. However, we have seen them do what is within their power to start the wind down of the Department of Education, which has led to about 50% of the Department of Education workforce being let go. What this really means for borrowers is, there's been less support than there was before. In 2024, the average wait times for calling student loan servicers and the Department of Education was over an hour, with average disconnect rates of 50%. That we expect to get much worse. We've seen this be really challenging for borrowers. And again, that's part of where Savi helps out. We, of course, are always maintaining a tight pulse on this ever-changing landscape, but we also have all of our customer support resources and our website here to help borrowers answer any of their questions. We do a lot of great webinars like this for the employees and borrowers we work with to help them better understand what all of this means for them, how it affects them, and make sure that they can get the help they deserve. Our call center is a US-based call center with a wait time of under 2 seconds. So really big difference there, again, to help these borrowers and answer their questions. The other thing I would say just for these programs, again, all of these programs, income-driven repayment, public service loan forgiveness, these are acts of Congress, and they are in the promissory notes of many of these borrowers' student debt. So there, we expect that there will always be some income-based program. We have not heard anything about the removal of PSLF and only the intentions to keep that program. So no concerns there from borrowers. Where the concerns really come in is obviously these changes will create more complications in navigating this, and which is very unfortunate for borrowers. But of course, Savi is here to assist with all that. So that's what we're here to do. To talk through some of the impact we've seen with the many counties we've worked with, what you're looking at here on the right-hand side is several dashboards of those counties. So each county gets access to a live dashboard where they can see how many people are utilizing the benefit, on average, how much their employees are seeing in forgiveness, how much they're seeing in monthly savings, the total debt they're managing, and the total projected forgiveness. So we've seen some pretty tremendous numbers with the many counties we work with, as you can see here, just of the impact we're seeing for the amount of people utilizing this benefit and the amount of savings they're seeing. Again, on average with counties, we see about $150 in monthly savings and over $40,000 in forgiveness. When you're thinking, I don't know with my workforce, how many of them have student debt, how many of them are struggling, we tend to see about 30% of the employees in government do have student debt. And it is a very large challenge for them, but they do qualify for forgiveness, and we want to make sure they get and maximize that forgiveness. So let's talk through the Savi benefit and how we help these employees navigate their student debt understand all their options, see which of the 150 programs they qualify for, and then automate the paperwork, not just for the employee, but we also automate the paperwork for the employer as well. So most of you most likely have someone in your HR department who is currently handling these PSLF forms. They can often be a big time sink, just with the process that it takes. A lot of employees come in with misfilled out forms or empty forms. Savi's going to automate that process for both the employee and the employer, making it take both just a matter of seconds for both parties, just requiring a signature from both parties to complete these forms. So let's talk about how we do that. What I'm jumping to now is the Savi microsites that we create with every employer we work with. So each county has their own microsite with their logo at the top left up here. They can also customize this little introduction here. But this is where we help borrowers navigate their debt. We engage with each borrower, each employee, or their family members on a one-by-one basis. Student debt is very personal. It is individual to each member, and therefore they would need to engage on their own. That's another great feature with Savi. We do not require any IT setup from your side. If you wanted to launch this benefit, it's just as easy as signing a contract. That is really all we need from you. Then an employee or a borrower would come to your microsite and they would start with two really simple questions. We ask them, what is their expected income and what is their monthly student loan payment? So for the sake of this scenario, I put in some pretty common numbers here. 50,000 in expected income and $444 in monthly loan payments. Now, when it comes to, hey, which of the 150 programs do I qualify for? How much can I save? How much forgiveness can I see? A lot of factors go into those programs. But one of the major driving factors to the 17 repayment programs we talked about is going to be this income to debt ratio. So from just these two numbers, we can immediately assess that this borrower can reduce their payment by $210 a month. So going from $444 down to $234 a month in payments. Now, again, that's just that immediate assessment to signal to that borrower, you do qualify for savings. This is something that is worth looking into. From there, they go into the Savi calculator tool. It functions a lot like a TurboTax style tool. If you've ever used TurboTax before, it's a very similar flow. But each of these questions that you're seeing here around family, income, employment, education, and loans all impact which of the programs you qualify for and how much savings you're going to see. And that's why we ask them here. So let's continue to run through this borrower situation. We see this borrower is from Maryland. They're single and they have two dependents. Now, the federal government recognizes dependents are very expensive. It affects that income to debt ratio. So we will actually see this borrower increase their savings even further, now paying $106 per month. So reducing their payment by $338 from what their current plan is. From there, we're going to ask the borrower about their employment. This is another great feature about Savi. Again, there's no IT setup required for Savi. One of the things that is often a question for employees and employers when they're filling out this paperwork is, what is your employer's name, tax ID, and address, all that matches up with what's in the federal government's database. That can create a lot of errors for borrowers. Savi removes this from the process. Borrowers just need to come look up their employer. Savi has a database of all these employers, and we also sync up with the federal government's database. So in this case, we see this employee works for United Way. That is a public service loan forgiveness qualified employer, similar to how your counties and any government employee would qualify. And we can let them know right away, you do qualify for PSLF. And of course, we can automate the paperwork on the back end for both the employee and the employer. The other thing you'll see we'll ask about here is we will ask about full employment history. Savi will help them get their full credits for any year served in the public sector. So we see this employee before United Way, they worked for Salvation Army. We're going to help them maximize their public service loan forgiveness credits. You'll see how that applies towards the end of this free assessment process. Next, we ask about education. This is an optional question, but there are programs particular to institutions attended. That is why we're asking that question here. And then we have borrowers sync up their loans. So we find this to be a really helpful section of the tool just because so many borrowers do not know their student loan landscape. The average borrower has 4.5 loans. You go to school, you take these loans out from the federal government, you get assigned a student loan servicer. Student loan servicers can change. Each loan is a different type, different interest rate. It can be really confusing. Again, speaking from personal experience here, as me and my wife, we have just from our graduate degree have over 16 different loans. That's just from my wife going to med school, one for each semester, all with different interest rates. So it can be quite confusing. Savi makes it really easy. We have a few options here. One is you can utilize your phone number You can sync up directly with your student loan servicers via Plaid and Spinwheel. Again, we can do this by utilizing your phone number and then showing you your full loan landscape. We also can utilize your student loan data information. So you go to studentaid.gov, download this data file, and upload it to Savi. This file can be really confusing. I actually have mine sitting on my desktop. If I can show it at the end if anyone's interested, but it's just a text file that's about 70 pages long about my full loan history and looks like gibberish even to me as a student loan expert. Fortunately, with Savi, if you upload this file or you sync your loans directly, we will show you your full loan information. So I've kept this case fairly simple for the sake of time, but you can see this borrower has two different loans, both federal loans, one with Advantage, one with Mohila, both direct subsidized, both a balance of 10,000, and both an interest rate of 6%. Again, for someone like me, just for my wife's graduate loans, we have 16 different loans, all different interest rates, different balances. So really nice to see it all in one easy to read place. Helps inform me as a borrower about what my landscape looks like. But also from Savi's side, we of course need this information to certify this information with the federal government to get you onto a payment program and get you on the path towards forgiveness. Uh, the final set of questions are just a set of questions that'll help us screen for eligibility programs. So these would be programs like if you were a Pell Grant winner, you might qualify for further savings. We also talked about how 40% of borrowers were missing several of their payments. If you're missing payments, if you're in default or delinquency, Savi can help you get back into good standing. Make sure you're on a payment plan you can afford, get you on the path back to forgiveness. So after you've filled out this information, and you've done all of this, you get to your free assessment page. This is going to show a borrower all the options that are available to them. So on top of this borrower's current plan, we see they have Pay, which is an income-based repayment plan. That's actually the one me and my wife are on. We see IBR, another income-based repayment plan, ICR, an income contingent repayment plan, and the Standard Department of US plan. We see all of these plans lead to substantial monthly savings, cutting the payments more than half. But you'll also see the bottom plan, the Standard Department of US plan, does not lead to forgiveness. That's really important to highlight, as we talked about before. Not all payments, not all programs are going to lead towards forgiveness on public service loan forgiveness. But there are many that do, and they lead to substantial amounts of forgiveness. You'll see that the top three plans, ICR, IBR, and Pay, all do lead to forgiveness. Let's talk about this plan at the top. We can see this borrower is comparing this plan to the Standard Department of US plan. They're getting details about that plan, seeing all the detailed information as well. One thing you might have noticed on every page of Savi, we do have the contact support button. We try to make it crystal clear through our tool. Very easy to use tool. Takes most borrowers about 5 to 10 minutes to get their free assessment. But if you ever have any questions at any point with Savi, again, we really are proud of the fact that we are borrower advocates. You can click that contact support button. You can talk to us via live chat. You can join one of our many borrower webinars to ask questions, have an open town hall style forum where you can learn about student debt and the Savi tool. And of course, we also have that US-based call center with a wait time of under 2 seconds. So a lot of great ways for borrowers to get questions answered if they ever get stuck or have any questions. So let's talk about what this borrower specifically is seeing. We see this borrower saving $338 a month. Again, on average, across all Savi users, we see about $187 a month in monthly savings and about $150 a month with county employees. We see that they're going to pay a total of $2,000 a month. So that's the total payment they will pay throughout time. And that is because they're a year and a half away from forgiveness. We saw that because we saw they worked in the public sector for 8.5 years. And they're going to see $20,000 of forgiveness. So pretty much the entirety of their loans forgiven minus the interest and principal. Again, it's going to depend on each individual borrower's case, what they qualify for, how much they can save, but it tends to be a relatively amazing impact for many borrowers. I mentioned my own case. I mentioned how I could not afford my monthly payment. My wife went to medical school. She works at GW Hospital here in DC. She has over $250,000 in student debt, which, believe it or not, is less than the average for a medical student. But what that meant for her is that she had to pay $2,647 a month. That is more than half of her take-home pay. And again, we just could not afford that payment, as we see 40% of borrowers say they can't afford their payment. With that being said, we used Savi, took us about 5 minutes, $47 a month, down to $86 a month. That is true. Breathe, put money towards retirement, put money in savings, get the better healthcare plan, dental plan. So what we would do without it, we would really be in a challenging situation. But the other great component here is that my wife also works in the public sector. If she continues to work in the public sector for another 6 years while making payments on this payment plan, she will see over $200,000 in forgiveness. That is incredibly powerful for her. It makes it really easy to stick with a job she loves. She loves working in the public sector. She loves working in a public hospital. She hopes to be a teaching doctor there one day. But of course, private practice often offers more money. Knowing that she will achieve this forgiveness makes it a lot easier for her to have that job decision-making power. And that's exactly what public service loan forgiveness was intended to be. Again, it was meant to be a reward and a recruitment and retention tool for the public sector, for folks in government and in the public sector in general. So really great resource, really great tool. Just need to make sure that we bump up that low acceptance rate, which Savi is here to do with our over 99% acceptance rate. So once a borrower has gotten their completely free assessment, they can choose a program. So let's say we're going to choose pay here, and then they're going to get to the Savi paywall. Here they have a few options. They can say, thank you very much for all this information. You know, I think I can handle this on my own, and just select the DIY option. We'll link them out to the federal websites. But what we see most borrowers utilizing is the Essential program. This program is discounted to $7 per user per year through NACO and MAC. And so this is the program that leads to that over 99% success rate I was talking about. It even comes with a money back guarantee. It's going to digitize all the applications, not just for the employee, but also for the employer. It's going to maximize those forgiveness credits, all of that support we talked about, the ongoing plan of monitoring, which is nice because it can often be confusing when you send in these applications. It can feel like they go into a black hole. We help you with that, and we make sure you stay enrolled on these programs, maximizing savings and never missing a payment. When it comes to Essential, a few options here as an employer. Most counties we work with opt to cover this fee for their employees. That would mean whenever an employee signs up for Savi Essential, you would get charged for that employee. You would not be paying for all employees, only those who enroll in the program. But we also have the option to offer this as a voluntary benefit, in which case an employee would decide to cover this fee on their own. Again, the most common model is employers will cover Savi Essential for their employees, and they'll let their employees decide if they want to upgrade to Pro. Although we do have some counties that also cover Pro, the option is yours. But Pro is a great program for those who might have more complicated situations. So again, the vast majority utilize Essential, but Pro is a great option. An example of who might use Pro, we see a lot of parents who have Parent Plus loans. This is when a parent takes out a loan on behalf of their child. In these cases, they might have a Parent Plus loan. Their child might also have a loan. When you have a Parent Plus loan, you can utilize public service loan forgiveness as though that is your own loan. So if you have a parent who has a Parent Plus loan working at your county, they can qualify. But sometimes we see with those, and it's the whole family involved, it might be more complicated, and they might want Pro. Pro is a white glove concierge level service. You can schedule one-on-one sessions, longer sessions with student loan experts to really get that extra level of support. The other thing we see with Pro is we see a lot of borrowers who've had debt for their whole lives and are still struggling with that debt, and one of our biggest clients is AARP. You see a lot of people in retirement who still have debt. They might have more older, complicated loans and just want to get on the phone with someone to have that dedicated session rather than using the call center or the live chat or the technology tools available to them. So those are the options. Again, a lot of flexibility here. You can cover just Essential, you can cover Essential and Pro, or you could offer this as a voluntary benefit at no cost to the county as well. How does Savi handle employees that already submitted for PSLF? Of course, if an employee has already achieved PSLF, they would not need Savi. However, we see a lot of employees who've submitted for PSLF multiple times, but are struggling to get that acceptance. I hear these stories all the time. We help those people out often. They usually would only need to utilize Savi for 1 year. But in these cases, what we're doing is we're helping them get previous years of credit for that PSLF. So maybe they're going to use the PSLF buyback program to buy back missed payments, or maybe they didn't realize that they could get payments certified for the COVID period, which accounts for 46 payments. We will help them maximize that credit and get them across the finish line as quickly as we can. The best thing employees can do is get ahead of this, right? If you get on the right payment type in advance, you're lowering your monthly payments, which is going to maximize that forgiveness once you reach the forgiveness mark, and make sure you get it the second you hit your 120 payment mark. But again, we work with many different employees. The average Savi user works with Savi for about 5 years. So again, that kind of shows some of them are already at the finish line for forgiveness. Others are just getting started in the career and might need to utilize Savi for 10 years. It's going to run the gambit for your employees. We see this all the time, but we're going to help all parties get across that finish line. Great. So after your employee has decided, okay, I'm going to utilize Essential, I want to file for these programs, from the questions we ask to get their free assessment, these are the same questions we need to send in these applications. The last documentation we need is some proof of payment. So it can be a 1040 tax documentation, tax return, or even just a pay stub to prove that income. Then we'll need a social security and signature. We never save these three pieces of information. These are the only pieces of information that need to be re-entered each year to help us certify for these income-driven repayment programs and public service loan forgiveness programs. And then we'll automate these forms. So this is an income-driven repayment form we've automated. This is a PSLF form we've automated. And again, we'll automate any of these forms for these borrowers, reducing error, making this take a matter of seconds. And again, we have over a 99.7% success rate on these programs. And then the borrower has a dashboard where they can see the full impact of the benefit. You'll see up here, this borrower is utilizing student loan employer contribution and retirement matching. That's not something that you necessarily need to offer, but it is an offering that Savi can help support if interested. Most counties we are working with offer this navigator where they can see when their next payment is due, how far along they are, what plan they're on, the loan details. They can contact their support, sign up for a webinar, and view their active application status. Really just manage their student debt all from this page. Do employees have to sign up each year? So employees have to recertify for income-driven repayment and PSLF on a yearly basis. Savi will assist with that process until they achieve forgiveness. They don't necessarily need to use Savi each year. They can decide to use Savi each year, and many do until they've achieved that forgiveness. So great question. And again, when it comes to Savi, this is not a refi company. We are just helping you navigate these federal programs that have been notoriously challenging. So when you see what we're showing here, we're helping this borrower make sure that they stay on their lowest monthly payment, make sure that they get to the quickest path to forgiveness, but they're still sticking with their same student loan servicer. These are still federal loans. Nothing around that is changing. We're just consolidating their loans onto a new federal program like income-driven repayment and working towards public service loan forgiveness. Let me take a sip of water. So what is the employer side of this? Almost done. Thanks for sticking with me. For the employers, again, anytime we get a PSLF form, these are forms that your HR team is most likely already handling. They tend to take a lot of time. We're going to remove that time from the equation. You will just get a form via email, or you can manage them from your dashboard. You come in, you put in a digital signature. That's it. Savi handles the rest. We even handle things like for the last few weeks, the federal government was not accepting digital forms. They were only accepting physical forms. Savi knew that. We printed them out and sent them in via fax for all the employees and borrowers utilizing the form, for all employers sending in these PSLF forms. So taking that out of the equation, this is just showing how we digitize it. And then finally, from the employer, as we showed before, you have an employer dashboard where you can see how many people are utilizing the benefit. Always really nice to see how many people are utilizing the new benefit, but you also can see and articulate the savings and forgiveness metrics. And we see a lot of counties utilize this from a recruitment and retention standpoint. One major thing I've heard from most counties is that they find this program really resonates with borrowers far more than a pension program. They said that they really love utilizing this to recruit all employees and retain employees by showing them the path towards forgiveness. But they especially like it for the younger crowds as well, who are really struggling with that student debt, showing them that they can achieve forgiveness and can lower their monthly payments through these programs, and they can do it right now. We can see with this employer, they're managing $2 million of debt and they're projecting almost 500,000 of it to be forgiven. Not uncommon by any means. With Savi, we've synced up over $8 billion of debt and we project over $5 billion of it to be forgiven. You also see that even though they'll get an email whenever a PSLF form comes in, they can also manage all these forms from this page, seeing what's ready to be signed and what's been completed. Wonderful. Well, that really shows the full benefit. We've seen this be incredibly impactful and exciting to many counties. We've launched with, we started with NACO a little over a year ago, MAC probably half a year ago, and we've seen many, many counties sign up. I know there's a bunch of information for our launches with counties like Oakland County, who has brought this to all their residents and is seeing just tremendous impact. I believe they've already seen over 30 million in projected forgiveness for their residents. So amazing impact there. Again, on average, borrowers are seeing $187 in monthly savings, 220 this much in annual savings, and over 40,000 in forgiveness. Finally, I'll just leave you with my email. Again, I'm Tony at buysavvy.com. Please feel free to reach out to me, reach out to your MAC representative. All of us are here to help you. Not just for obviously offering Savvy, very easy to launch, no IT setup required, just a contract that you have to fill out, and then we're ready to launch. But also, if you ever have questions on student debt, we are here to be a resource. But on that note, happy to answer any questions that we have right now on student debt. So I know my team has been answering some questions that have come through, but we can also take this time to I'm just giving everyone the ability to talk. If you want to ask questions out loud, I'm more than welcome, more than happy to answer those questions out loud. Or you can type them in chat, you can type them in the Q&A, whatever is most comfortable to you. Tony, you might talk a bit about which counties are already about to start using. Yeah, that's great. I know that we've worked with a lot of great counties, a bunch in Michigan. So of course, Oakland County has done a bunch of information around the benefit, around the impact they're seeing and why they're launching it. In fact, if someone from my team can even share that video, just the YouTube video link, or I'll look for it after this, that talks about why Oakland launched it, I think that would be very helpful. Hennepin County is another one that, is a large county that we launched with that's been seeing great impact. I know we've been talking to other counties who are very interested in it. We've had a few other launches in Michigan. I don't remember all the names off the top of my head. I believe we've had 5 counties in Michigan, over 50 counties nationwide that have launched with Savvy and are seeing that tremendous impact. And I know a bunch of other counties right around Detroit are also considering launching within the next few months. It's free to the county unless they decide to cover the cost for the employee. Yes. So most counties are deciding to cover the cost. I'm sure it comes as no surprise that we see far more usage and impact when you do cover that cost. But that being said, we completely understand if you do not have the budget or capacity for it, you can offer this as a voluntary benefit, in which case the employees just decide to make a credit card transaction. But the average model that we're seeing is employers will cover the essential fee just for their employees, and then family members can decide to utilize the benefit pay on their own. We would just do it through employee email verification. We can also do it other ways if you prefer to only cover for specific demographics. So lots of options here, but you can offer this at no cost if you like. We do encourage covering the fee if possible, though, and does increase impact. Thank you for that question. Any other questions while we are here? Happy to answer any questions. Again, not just on Savvy, but student debt in general. And thank you, John. John is sharing that video that I believe is, just Oakland quickly talking about why they launched this benefit and some of the impact they were seeing right off the bat. So really helpful there. Can you send us a copy of this webinar recording? Absolutely. My team, give us about 24 hours, but my team will record this webinar and share a copied recording of it along with the YouTube video that has been shared in the chat as well. Great questions. Any other questions I can assist with? If there are no further questions, of course, you can see my email on the screen. It's also in the chat. I will stay on for just a minute or two longer in case any other questions trickle in. But again, my name's Tony. I really appreciate you all being here. We've seen tremendous impact for counties for this. So really hope you bring this to your counties. Regardless, please inform your employees that they do have options. They can qualify for forgiveness. They should not be missing payments or going into default. Very important for borrowers, regardless of Savvy. But of course, Savvy is here to be a resource and help as many borrowers as possible. So we hope you bring this to your counties and really appreciate you for being here and caring and learning about this. Wonderful. Thank you all so much. I'll stay on for one more minute for any other questions, and then we can close out this session.